Coming up on 5 Minute News. President signs unprecedented climate and healthcare bill into law. Donald Trump's angry rhetoric inspiring real violence. And scientists say new climate rules will reduce global warming. It's Wednesday, August 17. I'm Anthony Davis. President Joe Biden signed Democrats' landmark climate change and healthcare bill into law on Tuesday, delivering what he has called the final piece of his pared-down domestic agenda as he aims to boost his party's standing with voters less than 3 months before the midterm elections. The legislation includes the most substantial federal investment in history to fight climate change, some $375 billion over the decade, and will cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 out of pocket annually for Medicare recipients. It would also help an estimated 13 million Americans pay for healthcare insurance by extending subsidies provided during the coronavirus pandemic. The measure is paid for by new taxes on large companies and stepped-up IRS enforcement of wealthy individuals and entities, with additional funds going to reduce the federal deficit. In a triumphant signing at the White House, Biden pointed to the law as proof that democracy, no matter how long or messy the process, can still deliver for voters in America, as he road-tested a line he will likely repeat later this fall ahead of the midterms. The American people won, and the special interests lost. The signing caps a spurt of legislative productivity for Biden and Congress, who in 3 months have approved legislation on veterans' benefits, the semiconductor industry, and gun checks for young buyers. The president and lawmakers have also responded to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and overwhelmingly supported NATO membership for Sweden and Finland. Democrats are hoping that the string of successes will jumpstart their chances of maintaining control in Washington in the November midterms. The 79-year-old president aims to restore his own standing with voters as he contemplates a re-election bid. A man armed with an AR-15 died in a shootout after trying to breach FBI offices in Cincinnati. A Pennsylvania man was arrested after he posted death threats against agents on social media. In cyberspace, calls for armed uprisings and civil war grow stronger. This could be just the beginning, federal officers and private extremism monitors warn. A growing number of ardent Donald Trump supporters seem ready to strike back against the FBI or others who they believe go too far in investigating the former president. Law enforcement officials across the country are warning and being warned about an increase in threats and the potential for violent attacks on federal agents or buildings in the wake of the FBI's search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. Experts who study radicalization and online disinformation, such as Trump's aggressive false claims about a stolen election, note that the recent increase was sparked by a legal search of Trump's Florida home. What might happen in the event of arrests or indictments. Amplified by right-wing media, angry claims by Trump and his allies about the search are fanning the flames of his supporters' distrust of the FBI, though it's led by a Trump appointee, and the federal government in general. And at least a few of Trump's supporters now appear to be acting on his anger. The intelligence bulletin also noted federal law enforcement officials have identified multiple threats against government officials involved in the Mar-a-Lago search, including calls to kill the magistrate judge who signed the search warrant. The names and home addresses of FBI agents and other officials have been posted online, along with references to family members who could be additional targets, according to the intelligence documents. The search of Trump's residence was executed based on a lawfully obtained warrant signed by a judge. But for Trump and his allies, that is beside the point. Massive incentives for clean energy in the US law signed on Tuesday by Joe Biden should reduce future global warming, not by a lot, but not insignificantly either, according to a climate scientist who led an independent analysis of the package. Even with nearly $375 billion in tax credits and other financial enticements for renewable energy in the law, the United States still isn't doing its share to help the world stay within another few tenths of a degree of warming, a new analysis by Climate Action Tracker says. The group of scientists examines and rates each country's climate goals and actions. It still rates American action as insufficient, but hailed some progress. This is the biggest thing to happen to the US on climate policy, said Bill Hare, the Australia-based director of climate analytics, which puts out the tracker. When you think back over the last decades, there's a lot of talk, but not much action. This is action, he said, not as much as Europe, and Americans still spew twice as much heat-trapping gases per person as Europeans, Hare said. The US has also put out more heat-trapping gas into the air over time than any other nation. Scientists at the Climate Action Tracker calculated that without any new climate policies, US carbon dioxide emissions in 2030 will shrink to 26 to 42% below 2005 levels, which is still short of the country's goal of cutting emissions in half. Analysts at the think tank Rhodium Group calculated pollution cuts of 31 to 44% from the new law. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.